talks a lot about the reticular activating system, that part of your brain that determines what you focus on, because primarily your brain is actually a deletion device. Most of the time your brain's trying to keep information out, because if you just let everything in, we would be overloaded, overwhelmed, we would go insane, right? So what you let in, the RAS is like that control system. It filters, it lets in things like threats, right? It lets in things like your name. That's why a name is the sweetest sound in a person's ears. It commands instant attention.
Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today we're diving into a topic that affects us all: negative self-talk. If you're an entrepreneur, a student, or just someone trying to navigate life, you know how crippling that inner critic can be. But don't worry, in this video, we're sharing proven mental hacks to silence that negativity for good. So, let's get started. Have you ever felt like you're your own worst enemy? Like every time you try to move forward, that voice pops up, telling you you're not good enough? Well, today, we'll explore the secrets shared by thought leaders like Ed Mylett and Kwik that can help you turn that inner critic into your greatest ally.
What's 2 hours a day over the course of a year? Actually, let's say you just save 1 hour a day. That's 365 hours a year.
Incredible.
That's how many 40-hour work weeks? 9.
9.
2 months
Oh
of
my
productivity.
gosh.
More than 2 months of productivity is saving 1 hour a day on something ubiquitous like reading. So that's why we do so much, like for people out you watching this, I know a lot of people are entrepreneurs, they have teams. The biggest line item, right, is human capital,
Yes,
right, payroll.
for sure.
But if they're reading 4 or 5 hours a day, that means half of their salary is being paid to read. Right, so if someone's getting paid $80,000, $40,000 just to read. That's why we train at Nike and Google and General Electric and all these individuals, because that's the faster you could raise the collective intelligence of your team, the more that they could be competitive, right?
Yes.
And so going back to this, the M is motivation. So I would always say, if you want to learn something new, check in with your motivation, because here's the thing: all learning is state dependent. All learning is state dependent. This is the thing. Information combined with emotion becomes a long-term memory. We know that.
Okay.
And we know this because ultimately the expert's not always the person on the podcast or on stage. You are your own expert. So genius leaves clues.
Okay.
Genius leaves clues all the time. So when somebody's exceptional in some area, there's a method behind the magic, including for your own self. Okay. So you don't remember all names, but you certainly don't forget all names. Now, go and deconstruct that, decode that. Usually the names you remember are names you're motivated to.
Okay.
You're somebody that is attracted to somebody that could be good for their business,
Yes.
right? So there's emotion there. So emotion tied to information.
Let's kick things off by talking about motivation. Ed Mylett emphasizes that all learning is state dependent. What does that mean? It means your emotional state directly impacts how well you learn and retain information. If you're motivated, you'll learn more effectively. When we're motivated, we tie emotions to the information we're learning, making it stick. Think about it. When was the last time you forgot the name of someone you were excited to meet? Emotion drives memory. But what happens when you're not motivated? What if that negative self-talk creeps in? Stay tuned, because I'll reveal a simple technique to transform your state of mind later in this video.
Becomes a long-term memory. Because here's the thing, is there like a song or fragrance or food that could take you back to when you were a kid?
Absolutely.
Because information tied with that emotion becomes a long-term memory. But here's the thing, back in school, what was the primary emotion we felt? Boredom, right? Half the room is bored, the other half is confused. But on a scale of 0 to 10, what's boredom? 0.
0.
Information times emotion. If the emotion is 0, what's anything times 0?
0.
And you wonder why you forgot the presidents, the capitals, the periodic table, all the things we learned in school, because the emotion level was very weak.
Wow.
Right? That's why entertainment is so powerful, because education, maybe empowerment is here. Entertainment is way up here because of that emotion. But when you can infuse emotion into the learning process, and part of that is human motivation. Because I remember the second question, I was talking to Bill Gates about he's like, reading is what I'd like to be better at. I'm like, I totally could help you with that, because leaders are readers, right?
Yes.
Clearly. And on top of that, I was like, we were talking about the future education, and I was talking about accelerated learning, and he was talking about tools and technology, and a bunch of crowd was building, and they said, what's missing? You have the tools, you have the theory, and we came to the same exact conclusion: motivation.
Motivation.
Right? Understanding human motivation. Why can somebody learn something, not apply it? you know, to be able to get that benefit, to be able to execute that. And I have a theory on that we could talk about. Why people procrastinate, why they put things off.
Back in school, many of us experienced boredom and confusion. Ed Mylett points out that this emotional disconnect is why we forget so much of what we learned. If you feel zero emotion, your brain simply doesn't register the information. It's like trying to remember the periodic table when you felt bored and unengaged. Imagine if education focused on emotional engagement. That's the key. Infusing emotion into learning transforms it. So, what's one way to hack your motivation? Identify your why. When you understand why something matters to you, you can harness that emotional energy to combat negativity. Stick around, because in a moment, I'll share practical strategies to uncover your why and keep that negative self-talk at bay. Next up is accountability. Jim Kwik emphasizes the importance of owning your learning journey. Many of us have been conditioned to pass the blame, but taking responsibility for your actions empowers you. Start small. Hold yourself accountable for daily tasks. Are you your own worst critic? Constantly battling that little voice inside your head, telling you you're not good enough? Today, we're diving into the science behind ending negative self-talk with proven mental hacks, straight from the minds of Ed Mylett and Jim Kwik. When you take ownership, you transform your mindset. Set achievable goals and celebrate your victories, no matter how small. This builds momentum and combats negative self-talk. Remember, progress over perfection. How can you create an environment that fosters this accountability? I'll share a powerful technique in just a moment.
But going back to the emotional level, tap into the second H, which is your heart. Now, the A, what I would say in max out, as people are going through this, just a simple acronym. The A, I would say, is accountability. Accountability. And this is, again, we haven't gone into the technique, but just owning it. Because most people are not responsible. They feel like, you know why? It's because we were trained that way. I get to work with Elon Musk, and I do trainings for him and SpaceX, the rocket science, a huge amount of information to be able to process, and be able to focus and so on, and be able to retain and apply. And you know, he's building a world of electric cars with Tesla. He's building electric cars and spaceships going to Mars, right? But the vehicle of choice for education is like a horse and buggy. How people learn is like a horse and carriage, and you wonder why you're falling behind. And here's why. We all grew up with the 20th century education. 20th century education prepares for a 20th century world. And at the turn of the century, it was working in farms and factories. And here's the thing, it trained us just to consume information. A teacher would lecture and you would just consume information. But the human brain does not learn through consumption, it learns through creation. Isn't it interesting that school will teach you what to learn, math, history, science, but important subjects basically, but not how to learn. What were the classes on creativity, imagination, strategy, problem solving, entrepreneurship, critical thinking, right? Where was the classes on listening? On emotional intelligence? Where were the classes on speed reading? Where are the classes on remembering? Right? Socrates says learning is remembering. Because nobody, like when I was at Google, they're like, Jim, but we have a search engine. Why do we need to retain all this information? Here's the reason, is because, I'll give you a couple of reasons. Number one, your brain is like a muscle. It's use it or lose it. But people are suffering from digital dementia. This is the new term in healthcare. Digital dementia. Digital dementia, where we're so dependent on our smart devices. It keeps our to-dos. It does simple math for us. I went to dinner the other night, and it was 10 of us, literally 10 of us. The waiter comes with the check, and half the 10 people pulled out their phones to divide the check by 10. And if people are listening to this, they don't understand why that's a problem, then that's the problem.
That's the problem.
Right? Because all you have to do is just move it, you know, the decimal just one over. But we've been so dependent on it. So digital dementia is saying we're so dependent on technology that we're not using this technology anymore. Like how many phone numbers did you know growing up?
That's the amazing question. I was thinking,
how many?
I don't know my wife and children's phone number right now. And I can tell you, I know my best friend's parents' phone number from when I was 7 years old.
Isn't that insane? And I'm not suggesting people, I don't want to memorize 500 phone numbers, but we've lost the ability to remember one. Because entrepreneurs, you want your freedom, right? You know, you set your life for freedom, but if you can't get yourself to do the things, then you don't have freedom.
It's the rub.
Right? Exactly.
It's the rub.
And you know, and that's the thing, that's the paradox. If you just do the easy things in life, you procrastinate, you put things off, right? Then life is hard. But if you do the hard things in life, life becomes easy. And because you're building those muscles. And what I'm suggesting is mental fitness is as important as mental intelligence. The X is exercise. exercise. And here's the thing, physical exercise, good for your brain.
Okay.
We know this across the board.
Physical exercise, good for the brain.
But I also, so people who are more mentally, who work out, they're more mentally fit, right? They do better on focus, mental acuity, memory tests. They create, when you exercise, you create brain-derived neurotropic factors, which is like BDNF, fertilizer for the brain, which promotes neurogenesis, neuroplasticity, new brain cells, new connective. People say like when they listen to your show, if they're doing on an elliptical, something rhythmic, or they're going for a walk, they'll retain it better.
Wow.
Right? Which is so powerful, just in being creative. Going for walks, like Steve Jobs, all his meetings were walking meetings,
that's right?
Because that's when all the creativity is coming out. So movement, because we live in such a sedentary environment.
Is that what you mean by learning is state-driven too?
Exactly, because movement changes your state. Your physiology affects your psychology. And we live in a culture where sitting is the new smoking. We've all heard this, and we're not moving. The primary reason why you have a brain is to control your movement.
Surround yourself with people who uplift you. Your environment plays a crucial role in your mindset. Ed Mylett trains teams at top companies like Nike and Google. Why? Because a positive team dynamic raises everyone's collective intelligence. Find your tribe, those who inspire you to push past your limits. Share your goals with them and hold each other accountable. When you surround yourself with positivity, you'll notice that negative self-talk starts to fade. Remember these steps. Identify your support system, share your goals, and stay accountable. Now let's pivot to a technique that can supercharge your learning and retention. Physical exercise is key. Jim Kwik discusses how movement stimulates brain function. When you exercise, you produce brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, which promotes brain health. It's like fertilizer for your brain. Combine movement with learning. Listen to podcasts or audiobooks while you walk. This boosts retention and creativity. So next time you feel that negative self-talk creeping in, get moving. And later, I'll reveal one last hack that can completely transform how you perceive failure. You won't want to miss this. Are you your own worst critic? Constantly battling that little voice inside your head, telling you you're not good enough? Today, we're diving into the science behind ending negative self-talk with proven mental hacks, straight from the minds of Ed Mylett and Jim Kwik.
When you pick it up out of habit, like not for purpose, but just out of habit, technology is a tool you're supposed to use, right? Exactly. And when technology is using you, who becomes the tool?
Wow.
Right?
So
we become the tool. And here's number one, you don't pick up your phone first thing, it trains you to be distracted. Number two, when you're in that impressionable state, is what you talk about, it trains you to be reactive.
Correct.
It trains you to be reactive. All of a sudden, you get one email, one voicemail message, it ruins your day, and we've all had that. It just, you're fighting fires and you're on the defense. How can you build an incredible day with vision and leadership if you're just reacting?
Well, I wanted you to defend is the wrong word. I wanted you to back that up with brain power, which is that you're literally training your brain to be a reactive
rewiring your brain for distraction and reaction in that impressionable alpha suggestible
By the way, when we're talking about alpha theta states, everything's going to go above for a few people, but I just want to stay in there. There's different brain states that you're going to be in. And it is also true that most people have a proclivity to wake up in a more worried state as well. And part of that is, I think it's the theta state. And when you're in theta, you're in a state where you have the potential to be worrying more deeply than in other brain states. That's true, correct?
So here's the thing. There are 4 primary states, brainwave states, that we cycle through. Beta is when you're most awake and alert. We're in beta right now. Delta is the slowest state. Obviously, you're asleep. That's the sleeping state. Right below beta is a state called alpha. I would describe it as a relaxed state of awareness. This is where your conscious mind metaphorically is set aside and you're just absorbing information. This is a great state to learn it. When we train people to learn languages faster, we put them into an alpha state. And you could do it through visualization, you could do it through deep breathing exercises, you could do it through Baroque classical music. There's certain classical music that put you in a relaxed state of awareness. An alpha state is actually, if you work with a great hypnotherapist, they'll get you to change your beliefs or your anxiety, test anxiety or public speaking anxiety by putting you in an alpha state through visualization, deep breathing, right, through soft nature music, whatever it is. They'll put you in alpha state and then they'll give you new things to say to yourself that you'll readily accept because your conscious mind is set aside, which is really the critic, the squelcher. Below that is the state of theta. Between alpha and delta is the state of theta. So this state, what you're talking about worry, absolutely, because this is the state of creativity. Right? You know what puts you into a theta state? Showers.
Okay.
Have you ever noticed when you're taking a shower, you come
Yep.
up with all these great ideas?
Yes.
It's always when you can't write something down,
Yes.
right? Because you
Yes.
see people how to memorize it.
Yes.
I actually took 6 showers this morning just to prepare for this. So I can be extremely creative, right? So
awesome.
the water washing over puts you into that really relaxed state where you become extremely creative. I was working with Will Smith, and again, I'm saying these names not to just name drop, but because they become memory reminders and triggers.
Sure.
Because if I just talk about Bill Smith, you'll forget the story. But if I say Will Smith, next time you see,
remember the story.
his movie, it'll trigger that. So we were in Toronto, and he was filming from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And I was like, how do you do this? Like 2 a.m. in the morning, you're just waiting. And then the director says, okay, let's do it. How do you get prepared? How do you get ready? He was like, Jim, I don't have to get ready. I stay ready.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, because you do the work. I believe that, like you, that ultimately the life you live are the lessons you teach. The O in max out stands for observation. A lot of people say, I have a horrible memory, and they blame their retention. It's not your retention, it's your attention.
Observation is crucial. Jim Kwik reminds us that a lot of people blame their memory, but it's really about attention. If you want to remember someone's name, use it in conversation. When you focus your attention on someone, it shows you care. This strengthens relationships and combats negative thoughts about social interactions. Plus, you're more likely to remember their name next time.
The story I tell is
Come on, that was
the
great.
second time I got to meet President Bill Clinton. And regardless of people's political
Sure.
ideology, everyone would agree he's got a lot of charisma, he's a great
course.
connector, a great communicator.
Absolutely.
What people
Incredible.
don't know, he's got an incredible memory, The first time I met him was very, very brief, but the second time, he remembered my name. And I was like, okay, he was fed that by security. And then he remembered our last conversation. I was like, nobody was there. He definitely remembers this. And I was like, I'm the memory guy. How do you do this? What memory technique are you using? Because I believe genius leaves clues. And he tells me these stories about his grandfather in Arkansas in the living room, telling the grandkids all these stories, but he would do something different. Afterwards, he would quiz every single one of them to see if they're really paying attention. And I was like, wow, that's really we went deep in that rabbit hole. And I would notice when he was explaining this to me, we're at a fundraiser, it's 2,000 people, and I was sitting right next to him at dinner. And it was like me, Forrest Whitaker, who won the Academy Award, Richard Branson,
good
Ashton
tape.
Kutcher,
Good tape.
Ashton Kutcher's twin brother. I put this on
I've seen it.
Facebook.
I've seen
It's
that,
crazy.
pictures, yeah.
But I was like this, when he's talking to me, he's like, there's a lot more important people in that room, certainly at that table, but I feel like I'm the only one, Ed. And this is a quality that you have.
Thank
like,
you.
I can feel this.
Thank you.
Because I believe, you go to events, we were talking about remembering names, and they're looking over your shoulder.
Yes.
And like, who else is important in this
Yes.
room? And
Yes.
and everyone feels, especially women, they
Yes.
feel like when your attention goes somewhere else,
got
they know it right away.
Yes.
Or if it's not being distracted outside, they're not paying attention.
Yes.
Because what are they doing? They're not listening. They're waiting for their turn to speak.
Yes.
Or they're thinking how they're going to respond. Right? Another habit of highly effective people: seek first to understand, then to be understood. Most people, they want to be understood, and they're thinking about all that, and they're not.
So powerful.
And they're not
what you just said.
interested. They're just trying to be interesting.
The
right?
oh my gosh, they're trying to be interesting. They're not interested. That's powerful. Let's just slow that down a little bit. The people whose company I enjoy the most, who are some of the most influential people I've ever met, have that exact skill set that you just described. They are less interested in being interesting, and they are more interested in you. That is 100,000% true.
And Ed, just an explanation more, like they're present with you. You know what I mean? Like you are. Since I walked through this door, you're there, and that's a trained skill.
Sure.
Listen, if you write the word "listen" on your phone or just in your notes, and then scramble the letters, it spells another word perfectly. It spells the word silent. And most people, they're not silent. They're talking to themselves and they're distracting. And if you're talking to yourself and listening to a new person talk, you can't listen to 2 conversations at once. You can't multitask. And by the way, just as a side note, there's a myth to multitasking. Everybody, I just have to address this.
Give it, I know.
Yeah,
yes.
because, and you know this, the science is saying, everyone who thinks you're doing 2 cognitive activities, I'm not talking about riding a bike and chewing gum. I'm talking about 2 cognitive activities, you're not really doing it. It's called task switching. That when you go from one thing to another, you're making more mistakes, science has shown this, you're making more errors, and you're wasting time. It takes anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes to regain your focus and your flow. What do? you hydrate because your brain's mostly water. Even a 2 or 3% decrease in water in your brain could reduce your reaction time, your thinking ability. When you're fully hydrated, it boosts like 30% reaction time, thinking. Hydrate and then breathe, deep breathing, right? Get those 6 deep breaths in. Actually, to create neurogenesis, neuroplasticity, to literally just get smarter, you need 2 things, novelty and nutrition. Just like if you want to build your body, you give it novelty, you work it out, and then you give it nutrition, you feed it, and then you rest. Because the rest is really important because that's where you consolidate short to long-term memory. So the O is observation, the U, I would go to use. And I'm doing this on the spot because I know these are the principles, but I would say, to remember a name, use the name in the conversation. Right? So somebody introduces themselves and you get it and you say it and you use it because you want to make sure you heard it right. You don't want to have a conversation with Ed and say goodbye Ted, right? Because some people, you're at a wedding, you're at an event, it's loud, you get distracted. Better to be corrected in the beginning. And then I'm not going to say use it a million times. Ed, you have a beautiful home. Ed, what do you want to talk about? Ed, what do you want? That's abuse. But use it 3 or 4 times in the conversation. Now in the context of non-remembering names, use it, because anything you learn, if you want to learn it better, right? If you want to max out with your ability to apply, then you want to always think about, how do I use this obsessively? When you're reading something, how can I use this? When you're listening to podcasts, how can I use this instantly, right? So even people listening to this could be thinking, okay, I have this event tonight, or I have this event tomorrow, how am I going to use this, right? So you're going to use it. And then finally, the T in max out, I would say teach. You know, intent matters. Intent matters. And what I would suggest everybody do, and I would challenge everyone who's listening to do this, because with challenge comes the change that you need, right? I would challenge everybody who's listening, if you're really serious, to use this and not just be like, oh, that was an entertaining show. I would say, think about somebody you wish was listening to this right now, and let's say you had to teach them tomorrow, or give a TED presentation on Monday about the things. If you were to learn with the intention of teaching, would you focus better? Would you take better notes? Would you ask better questions on social media, right? You would own that information. And so when you teach something, you get to learn it twice.
To wrap up, today we covered the power of motivation, accountability, environment, physical activity, and observation. These hacks can help you silence that negative self-talk for good. If you found value in this video, please like, share, and subscribe, and let us know in the comments. What mental hacks do you use to combat negative self-talk? Until next time, keep pushing forward and believe in yourself.